Hey guys, Cullen Kelly here for MixingLight.com. I am really excited that you've joined me for this series on creative coding, and I want to give you a high five right off the bat for taking the time to fully read through today's post. I know it's a lot to digest, but I promise it's going to pay dividends as we continue forward. Now, to wrap things up today, I want to show you guys the UI elements that we have the ability to create with DCTLs, and also give you a preview of the filmic contrast tool that we're ultimately going to build together. So let's get right into it, starting with these UI elements. I'm going to grab this template still that I've saved over here and drop it onto my node graph to get this template interactive DCTL. Now, this DCTL is just a dummy, so it doesn't actually do anything to our image, but it has been set up to reveal every single parameter we have the ability to give to our end user here in order. So let's go through them. At the top here, we have our float slider. This is float as in floating point number. Now we all know what a floating point number is, right? It's just a decimal point number whose precision goes out as far as we need it to. Next down, we have an int slider. That's int for integer. We know what those are now as well, right? It's just a whole number. Next, we have our numerical field where we can key in any number that we like. Down from there, we have our checkbox, which can be either on or off. And finally, we have a drop-down menu where we can specify any number of items and name them however we like. And of course, the cool thing with all of these parameters is that they can be hooked into our DCTL as variables and change the behavior of the script. So it's a really nice kind of outer wrapper on the DCTL system that allows us to present a simple set of parameters to our end user without them needing to have knowledge of what's going on under the hood. So with that out of the way, let's take a look at this filmic contrast tool. I'm pretty excited about this, and I think it's going to be something that you guys can put to really good use and tailor to your particular workflows and taste. So I'm going to drop this on here, but before I start adjusting these parameters, I'm actually going to prepend a node and drop a ramp on here because I want to show you guys, for starters, what this DCTL is doing on a 1D ramp. So now we've got a pure linear ramp because I've just turned off my final output transform. And let's start here from the top. And we've got our contrast, as you can see. It's a nice rolling S-curve form of contrast like we would get with a film print. So we can really set up our overall creative contrast curve with these sliders here. And where things get really cool is in these bottom three sliders for our split toning. So we have this first slider for our split tone strength, like you see, and that's simply going to dictate how much of a warm push we put into our highlights and a cool push we simultaneously put into our shadows. So pretty cool stuff. But where it gets really interesting is these bottom two sliders where we can actually control the cocktail of cool color that's going into the shadows and warm color that's going into the highlights. So now that we've seen how this kind of works on the 1D side, let's turn this ramp off and let's turn our output transform back on and go to a fresh image and grab this instance of the DCTL. So we don't need quite so much contrast on this image, and maybe we want to shift our pivot around a little bit like so. And let's now play with this split toning component. So I've got this turned all the way off here. So that's just neutral, no split toning. And let's bring it up to about 50% so that we're getting a nice strong hit of that push of blue into the bottom and push of warmer colors into the top. And we can now play with what that particular cocktail is in the bottom. You can see my vector scope moving down below, and you can see it in my image as well as I move from more of a kind of cyan-y push in the bottom toward more of a green push in the bottom. Same thing up at the top. We can play around with doing more of a kind of orangey gold versus more of a pure yellow. So this really gives us the ability to articulate not only how much split toning, but what color of split toning we want to introduce into our image. You can almost think of it as what axis of color we want our split toning to play across. It's a really, really powerful dynamic tool that I think you guys are going to find great use for in your grades. And of course, when we get to the end of our time together, you're going to have the ability to go in and further tailor this tool to your creative needs. So I'm really excited to get into building this with you guys in these next couple of insights. But for now, we've laid a great foundation in terms of understanding what DCTL is, what it does, what it doesn't do, how it works, and the end tools that we have the ability to create and the parameters that we can expose to that end user. I can't wait to get into the next installment of this series with you guys. And until then, I'm Cullen Kelly for MixingLight.com.